everyone. This is Maggie Froy with Core Consulting. I am going to actually get started by handing it over to Adam Krantz to say a few introductory words.
Hopefully everyone can hear me, and no one can say they can hear me because I can't hear you all. But I'm assuming everything here is working according to plan. So just a couple quick thank yous to Maggie and Jamie with Core Consulting for putting this all together. Most importantly, thanks to all of the board members and committee leaders who, some of whom are on this call and many of whom have participated in the surveys, et cetera, to give us some feedback and input into our strategic planning cycle so that Maggie and Jamie can do their job. It's a hump day today, so hopefully we'll make this work pretty speedily for you all to get through this week. But we're really excited about the timing of this strategic planning session. I know oftentimes with strategic planning, it's not everyone's most favorite activity. Takes a lot of time. This time we're trying to expedite it, make it as painless as we possibly can with the help of Maggie and Jamie. But we are looking forward to seeing everyone the week after next in Austin. The timing of this strategic planning session is particularly important. It's both NACWA's 50th anniversary, and in 2 years it's going to be the 50th anniversary of the Clean Water Act. So this time around, we are going to take a deeper dive than we normally do into strategic plan, which is normally sort of looking at an annual planning horizon. This time, we're going to really look forward over a 5-10 year horizon, and also to make sure that we're thinking very broadly in terms of the next 50 years of NACWA's existence and also that of the Clean Water Act as well. Looking very big picture of NACWA's role, both regarding members, but also within the water sector more broadly, to make sure serving our members as best as we can, and also the needs of the sector as a whole as well. Maggie's going to be walking through a lot of the input she received from our members, which is being shared in the webinar that we're going to have coming up as soon as I stop speaking. And it's going to inform us a lot into heading into the planning session in Austin, which we're all really looking forward to, and looking forward to getting the ideas of the board and our committee leadership out there. So what you're going to hear today are things you need to keep sort of top of mind heading into that discussion. And I can't thank you enough for the board and the committee leadership's involvement throughout this process. Talked to Maggie a little bit throughout this process and have gotten some summaries in terms of what feedback she's receiving, and it really, the insights and experiences that have been shared with her, I think help us enormously out in Austin to make it a productive meeting. I do want to just introduce, for those of you who don't know them, Maggie Froy and Jamie Holtzapfel. They're the principal consultants with the Core Consulting Group. NACWA has been very blessed to have a fairly long relationship with Matt and Jamie now through Core Consulting. They've put on tremendous sort of regional leadership seminars and training sessions, et cetera, in different regions with utilities, helping a lot of the staff at those utilities take on a mantle of leadership and interact and network with other utility peers in their regions. It's been a tremendous program. We can't speak highly of it enough. They've also been doing some strategic planning work for members of ours across the utility world, and the faculty has just been terrific on that front. So we're really excited using Maggie and Jamie really for the first time in the strategic planning capacity for NACWA, and we're really thrilled to have them. They bring up energy to these issues, and hopefully, as I said earlier, we'll make this as painless as it possibly can be. So with that, I look forward to seeing everybody out in Austin, and I'll hand it over to Maggie to take it from here, and look forward to the discussion. Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you, Adam, for kicking things off for us here today, and thank you for that kind introduction. My name is Maggie Froy. As Adam mentioned, with Core Consulting, we also have Jamie Holtzapfel from our team on the line today. I wanted to start out with just a few housekeeping items real quick. You notice by now that you have been muted upon entry. Due to the number of people on today's call, this is going to help manage the background noise. So, and it doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. We just want you to do that through the chat box. So Jamie is actually going to be keeping her eye on that chat box throughout today's call. So if you have questions about the content we are sharing, or if you're just running into technical difficulties, please send that into the chat box. Make sure you either reply to everyone or send it to Jamie directly, since she will be the one keeping her eye on that. I will pause once or twice throughout the webinar call to see if we have any questions come in. Welcome, as Adam mentioned, we've got a broad array of NACWA leaders here on the line with us today, from board members to NACWA staff to committee leaders. I'm seeing lots of familiar names here on the call-in list, so hello to everyone who we have a relationship with, and I'm looking forward to meeting those that are new to us when we're in Austin in a few weeks. From an agenda perspective, here's what you can expect for today's call. So the first phase of any strategic planning project that we lead for clients is what we call the research phase. So during today's call, we will be sharing with you our findings from the research phase of our strategy work with NACWA. And Adam mentioned this call is really in preparation for our time together in Austin in just shy of 2 weeks, where we will continue to inform the strategic direction that NACWA's internal planning team does to take with this next iteration of their plan. So this webinar today is really priming the pump for our time together in Austin, so that we hit the ground running and make the most out of our time together in person. Adam already did a great job introducing who we are and what we do. Essentially, core consulting, leadership, and strategy practice. We're ordered in Cincinnati, Ohio, but we do work with clients all over the country, and we strive and are truly driven by helping organizations power their potential. We truly believe that your people, and many of you I'm sure would agree with it, are the core of every organization, and we all know that when your core is strong, so are relations within your company and ultimately your results. So our services center around these 3 main service areas: leadership development, strategic planning, and team effectiveness. And on the call, we've probably worked with many in one of these 3 buckets over the past few years. So happy to be working in this strategic planning bucket here with NACWA and the rest of you over the next few months. Jane spent a number of years working within the wastewater and stormwater utility, both internally as well as externally in a consultancy realm and the sectors out there. But we like to say our wastewater folks are our favorite. We get funny looks from friends when we say it sometimes, but it gives us a chance to advocate about the power of water in their lives. Let's take a look at the overall project timeline and where we are at in the process. So our work with NACWA on this project actually began about mid to late July. We kicked off the research phase. I'm going to tell you in just a few moments what that research phase entailed. Kind of officially end research phase by sharing with all of you what we learned, and then we will be heading into what we call our appreciative inquiry phase of our strategy work. That's going to have components to it. It's going to be our planning session with all of you in Austin, and it's going to be 2 internal planning sessions then that I'm facilitating with the NACWA team in DC in December. And then the final phase of our strategy work always ends with a bit of refinement. I like to spend too much time with the people in person, find words missing, and kind of debate over a word here or a word there. So we like to take all that with us from the back end, provide that service of polishing things up, fine-tuning things, and issuing that final deliverable. And that can be expected around January of next year. So NACWA, we learned very quickly, and we already knew about them, honestly, is already what we would say is on a scale of good to great. So there are some organizations that we walk into for strategy work, and they might be pretty broken, to be honest with you, and we're not at a point of moving them from good to great. However, some of our strategy clients, such as NACWA and others, are at a really good spot, and we're looking for opportunities to get even better. So our research phase helps us to identify what those opportunities are. It helps identify what it is that NACWA is doing well that makes them so good, and what are the opportunities that they should plan for in this next iteration of their strategy that will elevate them to great. So the research components we used for this work, the first one was an internal document review. So we looked at financial plans and business plans and a few other internal documents. We did a member survey, and then also did selected member interviews from a cross-section of membership. So what I'll be sharing with you today is, again, just a summary of our findings from all three of these sources of research. Jump right in. And we don't like to make strategic planning painful. I kind of chuckled when Adam said this will be as painless as possible. It'll be as painless as possible, I promise you that. It will hopefully be engaging and insightful, and we're also going to have a little bit of fun in Austin. So if you ever thought strategic planning couldn't be fun, we're going to prove you wrong throughout this process. So let's first at the survey that we did. We had a response rate of 50, which external surveys pretty good. 10 to 15% is pretty typical for an external customer type survey. The member survey would fall into that category. This number hit us just slightly above that 12% response rate. So felt pretty good about the response that we had. It was a mix of public agencies alongside corporate affiliates, legal affiliates, et cetera, the majority being public agencies, which of course is the majority of NACWA membership. Said that we already know NACWA is in a place of moving from good to great is because we always do a quick kind of pulse check on the current effectiveness of an organization's mission delivery. So how are you currently delivering upon your mission? We ask this question in the survey. We like to force people into yes or no, good or bad category. So this is why we like to use a four-point approach, because it kind of forces them on one side or the other. So when we asked this question on the survey, essentially that 6% falling into NACWA is not currently effective at delivering upon its mission. And, the remainder, 94%, saying that, yes, NACWA is effective at delivering upon its mission. So clearly they are in a place of moving from good to great. That 6% was only 2 respondents. But essentially gives NACWA a 94% approval rating on its mission delivery. What this also tells us is it gives us a lot of opportunity here to move this needle a little bit more over to 4, most effective. And so this is that journey that we want to take on from good to great. And the research data we'll be sharing with you today will give us some ideas to do just that. Always important to start with your strengths. We're strengths-based leadership consultancy. We truly believe in elevating your strengths versus trying to pour all of your energy into all of those things that will never be kind of your butter. So some of you might be familiar with Gallup's Strengths Finder. This is a coaching tool that we use a lot for our leadership work, and I like to equate NACWA strengths in the same light of how we need to know what we're really good at. It's important for us to know what we're really good at when building a strategy. So we asked members, in 5 words or less, what do you consider to be NACWA's single greatest strengths? And as I have summarized this into 4 top strengths of the association, and I've shared a few of the words that members shared in their answers to that survey question. And that these are not listed in any order. So just because I have a number 1 strength, it doesn't mean that it's any stronger than number 4. Rose to the top in the responses that we received. So institutional knowledge, scientific sound reasoning, use sector expertise, intelligence, credible. These are all words that members used to describe NACWA's greatest strengths. Number 2, so many people answered this question with remarks about the team at NACWA that is helping to support their utility. So words like competent, hardworking, friendly, engaged, these are all words that were shared in response to that question. So clearly a top strength of NACWA are the people that are employed at the association. And I promise, tell me to put that one on there. I got data with anyone who's interested. All right, number 3, advocacy. So there's a little bit more to it than this. I mean, you might think, okay, clearly advocacy is NACWA's great strength. They're an advocacy association for our sector. But a few words that people submitted underneath this overall bucket that I'm calling advocacy. So first of all, they didn't just say a voice for our sector. They said single national voice for our sector, and there's a real difference there. There's many advocacy voices in the sector. But more than we heard that NACWA is the single national voice for our sector. Not that, but other people typed in comments to this question saying, they're not just out there advocating and not getting any results, but it's advocacy with results. And so I think that's a really important piece to number 3 to keep in mind as well. Ties back into number 1 and number 2 as well. There were a number of responses to this question that we bucketed into what I'm calling this collaboration and community strengths, about convening utility executives, discussing really relevant issues of importance to them and their utilities, national coordination, really seeing NACWA as an organization that brings people together to have those discussions and share best practices and kind of unite the sector when a larger, stronger voice is needed. Collaboration and community was definitely the 4th strength that rose to the top of the list. We asked members when it comes to NACWA's greatest strength is, what do you think about the services they provide? Out of all of the services that you get from NACWA, which ones are the most valuable in your opinion? And you'll see the results here on the screen. I'll give you just a moment to soak those in because I know there's a lot of words on the screen right now. I just checked. Someone asked if the presentation slides will be available. Yes, they certainly will. We'll be sending these out as a call. So I don't know if you noticed when you were looking at some of these categories, but it was pretty clear to us when we kind of looked at this from kind of a higher level. You could group 3 of these categories into what I'm calling education and peer engagement. And when you group those conferences, seminars, peer-to-peer networking, nurturing collaboration engagement, when you group all of those numbers, we get to actually 61%. would put kind of an education and peer engagement category right between service sector's leading advocacy voice and keeping me in a loop through your ongoing communications, etc. So, the most valuable service, the CP's second most valuable service is education and peer engagement. Third, keeping the know through your alerts and updates and white papers. Now, dig into NACWA's strengths in a little bit more qualitative of a manner when we held our interview discussions. So as I mentioned, one piece of our research, one-on-one phone interviews with a cross-section of membership. And we asked everyone we interviewed, tell me about a time when NACWA was just hitting out of the park. They were performing at their best. They were operating through their greatest strengths. You felt like they were really nailing it. Tell me about a specific situation that comes to mind. In the story that we heard from people, we were able to boil down into three overarching categories of when NACWA is performing at its best. Is regional convening. We heard stories about regional groups. I'm going to use a Great Lakes meeting example because a few people pointed to the Great Lakes meeting that was convened within the past, I think, year to year and a half. That was really valuable and beneficial that NACWA took the lead on convening. So even though they're a great national advocacy voice, we started to really hear the value that can be played at that more local and regional level when we bring people together. The second category that arose from these stories that people shared with us is what I'm calling NACWA to the rescue. NACWA is really good at delivering, sometimes quickly and at the last minute. Some stories we heard were things like, at the last minute, an elected official they're going to come visit our utility. We have an hour to meet with them. I don't have people on my team that can pull all of the necessary information together for me, much less do it in that short amount of time. One call NACWA, they answer the call, everything's delivered to them that they need to know, that they need to have, that they need to be equipped with to make that meeting with their elected official go successfully. So getting through on time. Another example was when federal funding becomes available, and they need shovel-ready projects ready to go in a short amount of time. Again, NACWA to the rescue. So this theme was definitely apparent, and I think ties in directly to that staff strength, that knowledge strength that we saw in the top four strengths. The third story that we heard from these stories is what we're calling smaller tactical discussion. So similar to regional convening, but this wasn't necessarily at a regional level. What we started to hear a lot were conferences are great, but, so we did hear a but, not that the conference isn't good, but how to make them better. Well, we started hearing from people, when I was at that smaller roundtable discussion and we were talking about a very specific issue and we were sharing very tactical solutions, that's when NACWA was really providing value. That's what makes me want to come back again. An example was the StratComs conference. Let's roll up our sleeves and problem solve together, kind of keeping things higher level, 5,000 foot, much larger room of people. That's what we heard were NACWA's greatest strengths. So just as it's important to reflect on your strengths whenever you're working to build strategy, it's equally important to empathy map by really putting yourselves literally in the shoes of the people who you serve. And so obviously for NACWA, this is members. So we asked a few questions throughout our research to help with this empathy mapping process. Before I pulled up this slide, it might give you a little bit of heartburn. I have a feeling that some of the things listed along the bottom here might be the types of things that keep all of you utility executives up at night. They're probably words that are heavy on your mind. Rehabilitating my aging infrastructure. How are we going to do it in a way that's affordable to my communities? Do I have any flexibility within my regulatory construct to be able to meet some requirements within the affordability of my community? And then, what are we doing about these emerging contaminants? So, again, some of these things that you're seeing here on the screen probably really resonate with you, and I hope don't give you too much heartburn. But it's important to know what the issues are that are most important to those that NACWA serves, and we ask specifically over the next 3 to 5 years. And if we take a look at the top 5 responses, and respondents were able to select up to 3, the top 5 really answer who, what, and how. So what's important to my organization over the next 3 to 5 years? Well, first of all, I need to know that we're going to have the people and the talent and the leadership in place to serve our community with the services that we provide. So what does my succession plan look like? How are we filling those talent gaps, et cetera? So workforce is top of mind. What are we doing to serve in a way that we need to continue to, help create healthy, sustainable community? So what does our system and our operations need to be able to do to be able to serve the community in the way that they need to be served? So what are system requirements that we need to achieve? And then how are we going to do that? What do our regulations look like? What funding look like? Where do some wiggle room? What do we need to advocate for? So really, I think you can boil down what are those top 5 issues the top of mind in the world of a utility executive today. It's that who, that what, and that how. So again, as NACWA goes through this empathy mapping process to understand, okay, now how do they fit in to really valuable membership experience to help them in those areas. Asked when it came to empathy mapping was, what greatest shifts or changes do you see happening within this sector over the 50 years? So as Adam mentioned, NACWA is about to turn 50. A year later, the Clean Water Act's going to turn 50. So we have this, this time to reflect, this important time to reflect on where have we been the past 50 and where are we going the next 50. So some interesting responses when we ask this question. I'm going to break it down into kind of the top 2 and then the bottom 4. So a lot of responses around things like emerging contaminants and increased regulations that might coincide with that. As is obvious to everybody, the impacts of climate change and what water's role is when it comes to climate change. I would classify those top 2 as challenges that our sector will continue to face over the next 50 years. However, outside of that, if you look at some of these other responses that we got when we summarized everything and rolled it up categories, they present opportunities. So we're people saying things like, well, over the next 50 years, I think water is truly going to be seen as a resource through all of our recovery efforts, maybe our strategic communications efforts. Water will be seen as a resource. We will continue investments in technology and automation. I was at a CASA conference out in California in August of this year, and someone was presenting on combining systems and the value of a combined system. And I about choked because when I was with my utility, our combined systems and the CSOs pegged in our consent decree were our heartburn every night. But the presenter said, now we have better technology now. We can have managed and controlled combined systems. And so it was interesting, but we'll continue to see advancements in technology and automation. People believe that integrated planning would be more fully accepted, worked into the regulatory environment, and operational within a utility. And this solve the hope over the next 50 years for not just additional funding, but to be very specific with that, additional federal funding. Very consistently from all the interviews that I think is important for NACWA and NACWA's leadership, all of you to keep in mind as we build out their strategy, is very consistently we heard things like, oh, there are loads of associations, there's loads of conferences. You know, I get off one plane on a Thursday, get on another plane to another association meeting or board meeting on a Friday. Sometimes I don't even go home in between. I'm, constantly having to defend my membership in front of my board. So I equate this to the yogurt aisle in the grocery store. If you've ever visited the yogurt aisle in the grocery store lately, you'll find something crazy like 100 different brands of yogurt sitting there in the yogurt aisle. Well, this is what, the typical NACWA member is faced with every day from an engagement perspective when it comes to local associations and regional associations and state and national and memberships. It's the yogurt aisle. So I think there's opportunity for NACWA to really stand out by making this easier, for NACWA to be that easy button, to make it easy to defend the membership, to make it easy to collaborate with other associations, to be that one water leader. Because what we also heard in our research is that NACWA is recognized as a leader for this sector. NACWA is already viewed as a leader in this sector. So, when we hear things like that consistently, it's clear that NACWA kind of can, maybe even should be, taking the charge, and I know they are in many ways, taking the charge and uniting that effort and that one water collaboration. The other thing's easy is more communication and resources standpoint. But, is my communication personalized? Is it exactly what I need to know when I need to know it? Is it easy to find? Is it easy to access? So just keeping this easy button in mind so that NACWA continues to be a fuel for its member organizations and not ever fall into that trap of being another drain, another yogurt sitting there on the shelf. And take a quick look at the chat here before we move on. Jamie, your line real quick. Did anything come specifically that I should pause and answer right now?
Mag, no, I don't have anything in my chat box right now.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, I think that easy button is a great segue into the opportunities that we heard from our research that can really move NACWA from good to great. So we survey, what is the greatest need that you see across the clean water community that presents specifically an opportunity for NACWA to serve its members? So I know there's lots of needs and there are different partners to serve those needs, but specifically we're seeing opportunity for NACWA to help serve those needs. And I put the number of responses next to the buckets that you see here on your screen. So under this first bucket of legislation, regulation, and legal, we were seeing comments around, the emerging issues that you're facing when it comes to, again, contaminants or climate change, that flexibility piece within the construct, just to continue to be that voice of sound scientific reasoning. We saw those words over and over again in people's responses. I mentioned that the comments around funding specifically aimed towards federal funding. And 5 comments that we received here on workforce, we were hearing things particularly around leadership succession, but then also about kind of bridging this gap between white collar and blue collar needs within the organization. The other ones here are pretty self-explanatory. We also in the survey, what would motivate you to become more deeply engaged with NACWA? And a few things I want to call out here on this slide. There's a lot going on here on the slide, but I want to break it down into really 2 key areas here. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is over here. Only 12% said, you know what, I'm good. I'm pretty happy with my current level of engagement, and I really don't have time to get any more engaged with NACWA. Which means, on the flip side, that 82% of your members want to be more engaged. 82%. This is incredible, in my opinion. They're not hitting that unsubscribe option at the bottom of your emails. You're not that email. They want to get more engaged with the association. So how do they want to get more engaged? Well, again, I'm going to group a few of these buckets together. Look at some of these responses that I have drawn a box around and tally up the percentage. 50% of the people who responded to this question want to engage specifically through additional forums to convene. So additional forums outside of the regular conferences that you already offer. We also heard in the interviews maybe it's an add or an attachment or an extra opportunity with at conferences. Are there smaller group settings that I can convene with my peers? Are there more initiatives or committees that I can be on to help move the work of NACWA forward? So again, a large number, more than half, wanted additional forums to convene, which goes right back to that number 4 strength of collaboration and community. And then 20% here is the second one I want to call your attention to, and people want to get more engaged via learning options for both new executives and continued learning options for those senior level executives. So we have a lot of newer utility executives kind of taking the reign, maybe managing a board for the first time, in all of those things that becoming an executive, that comes with becoming an executive for the first time. And then, of course, you never stop learning and growing. So we have our seasoned executives that continue to have those learning needs as well. So almost 75% want to get more engaged with you via additional forms to convene and earning opportunities. And not just like technical learning opportunities, right? We're talking leadership growth, essentially what are you facing as a utility executive and what skills are necessary to build to be able to navigate through that world successfully. Opportunities and moving from good to great, it's really helpful to envision the future. What do we want the future to look like? So specifically, we asked folks, all right, if all of us are sitting around this phone call, say we're all on this webinar together 10 years from now, what would we be elated about? What would we be cheering about? Specifically, what would we be cheering about that NACWA played a role in helping this sector to accomplish? So what are those things that NACWA can help this sector accomplish, let's just in the next 10 years, that would be celebrating if we miss call 10 years from now? And these are some of the responses that we got. Probably a big surprise to you because they match very well, coincide very well with some of those issues that you're facing in your world day to day. And for all of us to keep these things in mind as we head into our session in Austin, and as the internal NACWA team heads into more tactical planning at our session in December, because, when building out a strategy, it's important to know where you want to land. I always say you need to begin with the end in mind. So if these things are the end in mind, then let's put some around it. Let's put some tactical goals and processes in place now to that these are the things that we are celebrating in 10 years. And that's exactly what this strategic planning process and exercise will help association do. Okay, from here, I mentioned that this research phase was only one of 3 phases of our strategy process. So let's just summarize real quickly what we covered in today's call, and then I'm going to end in just a few moments with some specific notes about our upcoming time together in Austin and what we can expect. A few strategic considerations I think all of us should kind of carry with us into that session in Austin based on what we learned from this research. First, since we're stronger together as a sector, and specifically NACWA was called out as being a leader in bringing us together. Value and services, I talked a little bit about that defendable membership. NACWA is truly providing kind of an extension of your leadership team and resources that you do not have internally. One, right? So in a crowded market, NACWA is seen as a leader and needs to continue to stand out and offer real and defendable value. So we're seen as a leader, and we need to make sure as we build out future strategy that we continue to place ourselves in that leadership position through goals and strategies that we commit ourselves to. Heard here through the research is this focus on regional opportunities to convene. So those smaller peer-to-peer forums, those smaller, more intimate convening forums, and particularly more opportunities at a regional level to discuss some of the unique regional issues that people face. I think it's important for people to keep in mind as they proceed with this next iteration of their plan, but we can't lose sight on expertise and that speed that you have in-house on your team. It's truly NACWA's, what I would say is NACWA's strategic advantage. Your in-house institutional expertise and speed and your team's commitment to follow through and quality. You don't always get that from membership association, and so it's really important that NACWA not lose sight of that and continue to leverage that strength. And then we need to keep it easy, right? We need to make it easy for our members to engage with us, to get value from us, because it is pretty, unfortunately, not easy all the time, and so we need to be that easy button. So used, and what can you expect next in Austin? As I mentioned, I always like to begin with the end in mind. So I wanted to show you a quick visual of what we are building. This is what we will be building. This will be the deliverable come January when there's a new polished plan in place. We keep things high level in Austin, so the components of the strategic plan that we will be discussing with all of you during that session will stay at level that you see on your screen right now. So things like mission, vision, core values, and then what we call strategic priorities are those key focus areas that you, like NACWA, should build goals and strategies around. And then there is going to be a deeper level of this, and that's the work that I will do with the internal NACWA team in December. I want you to see kind of where you're staying Austin at that higher level, which obviously, as a board is really your role and your value to stay at that higher level. And then we will work to build out goals and strategies based on your input in Austin. With that, we're setting out a few things before we see each other in a couple of weeks. You can expect these to come over the next few days. I'm not really sure of the timing yet. I do have a planning call with the NACWA team Friday morning, but I also know there's a holiday for many of you on Monday. So you'll either get this on Friday or Tuesday. Either way, we'll have a full week prior to our time in Austin. It's super easy, light pre-work, nothing that will take you more than maybe 10 to 15 minutes of reflection during your flight there. Since you're already done with number one. So the first prep for the Austin session is to listen to this presentation. Anyone who was not able to sit on this presentation today, we are going to be sending out the recording. I'll just send the recording to everyone, whether you were here or not. So the biggest piece of the pre-work is this presentation. And then we have a really short video clip. I think it's about 3 minutes about core values that I want everyone to watch. That's going to tee up an exercise that we are going to do together in Austin. And then the reflection I'd like you to do, you don't need to turn this in. You don't even have to write it down if you don't want to. It's just come ready to share what you feel are NACWA's top 3 character traits. I hope that summarizes this pre-work and gives you an example of, the type of character traits that we're looking to reflect on. So more to come in that document. Again, I will be sending that document out within the next few days. You'll certainly have it in plenty of time to look over and reflect upon maybe on your flight or your drive there. Okay, with that, let's for questions. I'm going to take a look at my chat box. I don't see my chat box. Let me unmute Jamie real quick. Anything is coming to her?
Nothing either, Maggie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our emails are on the screen. So if something pops to mind after today, feel free to shoot either one of us an email. We really appreciate your time today. I kept it short and sweet as possible. We're at 47 minutes, so enjoy the 13 minutes that just got added back to your life, and we look forward to seeing everyone in Austin in a few weeks. Thanks a lot.